Historically, 30 to 40 million alewives ran up the St. Croix River, through the Passamaquoddy territory and along what is now the United States-Canada border. Dams, mills, industrialization, and pollution caused the alewife numbers to plummet. Today, Chief Hugh Akagi, Chief of the Passamaquoddy peoples in Canada, joins us over Zoom to discuss the momentum behind the restoration and healing of the St. Croix River and the return of the alewife.
To me, even though we're Zooming, even though it's something we have to do, I'm not a fan of the two-dimensional world. And I think that we can do so much more when people finally get together. And then we can take that into what's wrong with this world, the whole COVID thing. I don't separate one from the other. The worlds are all impacted and they're affecting each other. Everything from returning the nation, getting healthy food, to the health of the river, to the other fish returning. I know that's a lot, but that's on the backs of that little fish. And to think that we actually headed down to 700 fish at one time in the river, we should be embarrassed. We should be, we being not people who have been trying to fix this so much, but we're all partly responsible. This is a massive system. I'm looking at it out my window. The reserve is directly across this body of water, and that's the big connection between us, and I'd like to give you that. This was our highway between that body of water and the canoe. All my relatives are over there. That's where they went because they're driven out of here. So this is why when I look out and I see the mainland, the United States, I know who's there. When I look at the body of water in between, I know what was there. I know that it's empty now. I know that we're down to 2 commercial species, lobster and scallop. You can check me out on any of this. And this is one of my DFO benefits, if you will, being able to wear that hat and knowing what they've done, how they've done it, when it was done, all of that that's decimated what should be the richest waters in the world. And please quote me on that. These are not just rich waters, rich waters. DFO have done the work. They've come up with something called EBSA, environmentally biological sensitive areas. There's so much nutrient in this water. That's why everything's here.
It's almost hard to imagine that level of abundance now, or even the hope that it could come back. Maybe you could just talk a bit about that historical abundance of these rivers.
Okay. Just gently remind people that my DNA here goes back 14,000 years according to everybody's record. That's a pretty good footprint. So when I look out and I say, okay, what got us here? Herring, alewife, mackerel? Mackerel chase herring. No herring, no mackerel. Alewife were so similar to herring that a lot of people didn't know the difference. And they could have been massive populations. We had millions in this river. Sometimes when they looked out and saw the water black, and I've seen the water black with herring, although I haven't seen it in about 40 years now. That could have been alewife because the alewives turn the rivers black. I've seen that in Penobscot territory after they removed the dams. So all of a sudden, these species now that are disappearing, the high energy that's disappearing, the impact isn't just human. If you're a whale, if you're going to make a trip coming clear from the south to these colder waters, if you're coming up here and you need energy to make the trip, you need the energy to breed, then you look for alewives, you look for mackerel, and you look for herring. They're so key and so critical to that whale appearing in our territory. So an endangered whale that requires high energy content. And it's a greater story. And if you don't want me to go into plastics, then you better stick to the, keep me on the whales for a while. But there are whales that chose not to breed. A whale makes a decision. A whale says, do I have the energy to go south again? Which means, do I have the energy to breed? Or do I breed and take a chance that I might not make it south again with my young? And there are whales that came all that way and didn't breed one summer. They didn't have the energy to breed and go south. This is a record. This is not me. These are well-kept records by DFO and others.
The potential of the St. Croix we read, is to have as much alewives as the whole rest of the state of Maine. And I guess the question.
Let's go for it.
So then the question is, have you already seen restoration?
It may start with us in some grassroots. It may have started with Eddie and myself and Brian Altater talking after council meeting on the reserve over there. But what we were doing was we were trying to build something that they couldn't break down. And that was, again, another part of a story. In order to really, as Ed would tell you, get the fish back into the system, it required the removal of a 4-inch board. Eddie has that in his office. In order to do that, we had to work with the state of Maine. What we were doing in the room was putting our own people together, the relationship with the state of Maine, the relationship with the federal department, forging alliances. So all of that was groundwork. So you don't just count the fish. You start looking at the building of the relationship. You start to see Maine are listening to us. The IJC, International Joint Commission, they listened to us. They heard our voices. They stood up. That's big. We are a minority, no matter how you cut it. Minorities can't defend themselves simply by numbers. So if others don't stand up, then we'll just disappear in the breeze. This is where you ask me the question, where do I get the hope? That's where I get it. Yes, we can count the fish. Yes, we can say we're going from 700 to 650,000. Yes, we can say it's building, it's getting there, whatever. What about the story on the dam? Removal of a dam? That's where we're coming from. Because we don't want to just count alewives. We want to count sturgeon. We love to get salmon back. How are we going to do that? Let's talk about impact in the bay. Because salmon are being railroaded by something called aquaculture. Let's talk about how we look at agriculture, ranching, farming, and aquaculture. Let's talk about what's going on in the woods, because the contaminants that are coming out of the woods due to the clear cutting are going into this bay. And then we're going to talk about what we're really doing wrong when we harvest seaweed down to 9 centimeters. And who's protecting the crabs and where's the moisture when it was supposed to lie down and cover the clams? Well, how come, the soil is heating up now? Why do we talk about global warming when we're creating it right here?
What is the hope of what could be achieved? I mean, on Earth, there are few places that have the potential to rebound like this fishery, these rivers here. How are we going to take that on, and what does it mean for the young people who will experience that in their lives?
Young people are asking questions now that my generation refused to ask. But we live in a world where silence is considered consent. We have to speak out. We have to be heard. We have to defend. We have to look after our territory. We have to look after the fish. We have to look after young people. And I think that all of that is where we need to go if we're going to fix the river, the fish, and get the story out there properly. This is a success story. This is something that we can point to and say, look at what we do, look at what we are doing. It's part of that awareness package and education package. I think that this world we're in that's out of control, and by the way, don't ever listen to anybody that tries to tell you that it's a new world out there. It is not a new world. It's a new set of rules. Don't let them tell you that it's changed. That's how they get away with it. However, where I want to go with this, isn't it interesting that one of the solutions to all this is, well, we need to isolate. Well, excuse me, this global economy, that's the model that they want everybody to follow, doesn't support isolation. We need to deal locally. We can have a quality of food from local resource, and I hate the word resources, from local sources that we can trust, that would keep us from depending upon the rest of the world. So we can even have a better economy. We can have local food. We can do it all right here. Get our species back. Make the alewife healthy. Bring us back our herring. The fish that follow, that's food too. Don't forget that that tide is a most incredible dynamic. Where else does Mother Earth bring you food? Drop it at your doorstep. And then she goes back and says, go ahead, walk on the floor of the ocean.